as I said, this semester we would be going with cost accounting too, and the syllabus what we would be learning broadly, it can be put under this category. Okay, that is, first we will go with discussion about job or job order costing and batch costing in our first module. Second, we will go with contract costing. Third, we will go with process costing. All these three are three types or three methods of costing that are used in based on the different nature of the industry. Okay, methods that can vary depending on the nature of a particular industry. That's what first three methods of costing. We learn about job order and batch costing. That's one method where the nature of the job is you are assigned with each job. Say for example, suppose if you are talking about an interior designer, okay, so he would be given with a particular task and he would be quoting price for that particular task, right? Like if you wanted to make or develop interiors for your office space, so you will say that, yes, I want this designing to be done for this room. So that is a particular job. So he will fix a price for designing your office space. So jobs of that nature, you fix or you fix your price based on the job assigned to you. Such type of industries use job order costing. The same thing when the production is happening in batches. Say for example, medical industry, pharmaceutical industry. You can see when you take a product, when you take a strip of your medicine, your tablets, you can see the batch number. That's nothing but the production has happened in batches. So such type of industry. So the cost also is decided per batch, right? Cost per unit is computed based on that batch cost. Right. So such type of industries would be using batch costing technique. So job is for a particular job. Okay. And then batches when the production is happening in batches. So that is the first part which we are going to learn in module 1. Then when the job is of larger nature, when it is spread over years, like construction of a bridge or now in our campus there are a lot of constructions happening, building constructions, buildings, so that is in the nature of contract costing. Thing is, the price is quoted for that particular job, but the nature is it is big. The involvement of cash is big, the involvement of investment is big, and it might be spread over maybe half an year or 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. So each of this contract is treated separately. Such industries would be using contract costing method. That will be our module 2. Now, module 3 is all about process costing, which is the production happens as a process, continuous process. Say, for example, textile industry. Initially, you will bring the yarn, then you will start weaving, then you might do the designing, then you will go with the stitching. Finally, you arrive at the final product, which can be a maybe unit of shirt or sari or whatever it is. So here, the finished product for one process becomes the raw material for the other process. Such type of industries would be using process costing. Listen to me very carefully to get a complete understanding of what you are going to learn in this semester. So these three talks about different methods of costing. So these are the broadly 4 types we would be learning. One is job order and batch costing. Job is for a particular job. The method used for when the nature of the industry is, the cost is fixed per job. Okay. Then the second one we will be learning about is batch costing, where costing is determined per batch of production. Then the third method we would be learning is contract costing, when the nature of the job is longer, for a longer period. Investment of money is large. In such industries, we will go with contract costing method. Right? So that is our second module. Third, when the nature of the industry is such that production happens in process and the raw material for second process arrives from the finished product of the first process. So in other words, the finished product of first process generally will be considered as the raw material for the next process that is to happen. Okay? Such type of industries would be using process costing methods. So these are the three things. Now the next thing what we would be learning is marginal costing technique. Okay, that I'm going to discuss. It is one of the technique used for better control of cost, where we will take care of only the changes in the cost because of a particular decision. We are not going to look into the fixed cost angle. We would be caring about the variable cost. We would be caring more about the variable cost factors. What has led to change in the existing cost structure because of a particular decision. So it's actually one of the costing technique which we would be learning as our fourth module. And the last module is a control tool. Control used for managing the cost effectively. So that's actually budgetary control, which talks about setting up of different types of budget and management of your cost operations by comparing with the budget and the action. Right. So if you arrive at some deviations or maybe you have deviated from what you have planned for, rectification will happen based on the budgeted figure. So these are the only things what we are going to learn in our sixth semester. Okay, so first three we will learn about costing methods which are used by different methods by different industries, and the next two is basically for control of cost. One is called marginal costing technique, and the last one is purely budgeting. You set different types of budgets like cash budget or maybe production budget, sales budget. It's actually an estimate for a particular period, and then you will compare your actual performance with the budgeted, and if there is any deviation you have to take corrective measures. So that's what we learned in the last module. So I hope you will feel that this is very simple. This is what we are going to learn in this semester. So I'll just give a brief introduction to module 1 in our today's class. Okay, so as I was just giving an introduction to the methods of costing, broadly methods of costing can be classified into two. Okay, one is specific order costing and other one is operation costing. Specific order costing, as the name indicates, the cost is calculated for each job specifically to each task. So what we are learning in module 1 and 2, that's job costing, batch costing or contract costing, will come under specific order costing. What you have to remember is the cost is fixed for a particular job, for a particular task, or for a particular contract. You imagine the example of a construction of a bridge. Okay, so you are estimating the cost based on that particular situation where you have to construct this particular bridge. You are not making a broad cost figure for all of your tasks, but it is customized for that particular contract. Right, such type of costing method is what we call as specific order costing, order-based costing. Right, then the second one is operation costing, where the task is repetitive in nature. Maybe process costing will come under that, where you are using multiple costing methods. It's based on the sequence of your operation. One operation leads to another. So when you go with the final computation, you will consider all these stages to arrive at the final cost of your product. Right? Such type of costing technique is what we call as operation costing. That's why I have put it as sequence of repetitive or continuous operations, which we talk about operation costing. So methods of costing can be broadly categorized into specific order costing and operation costing. Now let's look at, we had already learned this when we were in our fifth semester when we introduced the subject. Right? So methods of costing, again, I'm just splitting that. Job costing, where each job is considered for computation of cost. Contract costing, here as I said, it would be bigger. The picture would be bigger in nature, maybe spread across many years, but still the cost is computed for each job. Okay, that's contract costing. Then batch costing, production happens in batches. So naturally, cost computation is also done in batches. uh, I always tell my students to remember from this concept, like if you take a packet of biscuit, you can see the batch number, right? If you take a strip of maybe paracetamol tablets, you can see the batch number in that. So which means the production has happened in batches. Accordingly, the computation of cost also has happened in batches. Per unit cost is computed based on the total cost of manufacturing for that particular batch. Right. Then process costing, what you have to remember is it's process, so it's continuous in nature. One process leads to another, so the computation of total cost becomes adding up of all the costs involved in this entire process. So that's process costing. Unit or output costing, what you have to remember is units produced are identical in nature. While production happens, units produced are very much identical in nature. Say, for example, the best example you will remember is brick manufacturing industry. You can see that when they are saying about a particular size or particular category of bricks, all of that would be uniform, right? So there can be they cannot establish any difference from one unit to another. So the cost and the pricing will be dependent on these factors. Such type of method is costing method is what we call as unit or output costing. So basically, how many units produced divided by or no total cost divided by number of units produced. There is no difference between each of these units. Then service or operating costing, as you know, it's purely applicable to the service industry, where you don't talk about raw material, you talk about the cost of rendering a service. For example, banking industry or tourism industry, where the nature of accumulation of costs is slightly different from a manufacturing concern. You don't talk about a production process. You don't talk about bringing of raw material, converting of raw material, stocking of raw material. No, that may not happen. It might be in some industries you might need some manufacturing activity, but a pure service industry would be talking about rendering of service, and the cost computation is based on cost involved for rendering that particular service to the designed customer group. Okay. Then multiple costing method. See, in some industries, you will have different products, right? You will go with manufacturing different products, which requires different types of raw materials. Based on the nature of that raw material, you will use different costing methods. Like, you suppose if it is a small unit required in large number, you might go with unit costing method. Or if you want the production to happen in batches for some of the raw materials, you use batch costing method. Or if you know that you want to assign a particular task to a subcontracting, or you want to give a particular task to a particular group of or assigned group of people, maybe you will go with computation of costs for that particular job, for that design job, assigned job. In that case, you will go with using job costing. So in multiple costing, what happens really is you use many costing methods to finally arrive at the cost of that particular product. So these are broadly the different methods of costing which we use in depending upon the nature of the industry. I'll just quickly go to the next part also, which is very much connected with here. That is cost unit. The cost unit, always we talk about per unit. Always we talk about the unit of computation of cost. For example, you might say 1 kg, the cost of producing 1 quintal or 1 ton, or the cost of producing 1 kg of a particular item is, say, 10,000 rupees or 20,000. So there is a unit that is applicable depending on nature of the product, right? That's what we call as a cost unit. It's purely used for assigning cost to a particular product or service. So unit of product or service or time in relation to which cost may be ascertained is what we call as cost unit. I have put few examples like ton, number, or kg. See, I will say 100 bricks. The cost of producing 100 bricks is say maybe 5,000 rupees or 6,000 rupees. So likewise, I assign based on some unit. That's what we call as cost unit, right? And I'll just quickly go through these techniques which we had already mentioned when we were talking about costing at the semester 5, at the beginning of semester 5. So techniques of costing can be categorized into the following. That is, first one is uniform costing, where as the name indicates, same principles being applied to the entire units being produced in an organization. Same costing principle. That's what we call as the technique of costing based on uniform costing. Then marginal costing, I already mentioned, we have a separate module for this. Marginal costing, here what we look into is what is the effect of changes, or we are more concerned about the variable cost for a particular product, because fixed, we know that there is no possibility of changing it in the normal condition. Of course, in a long run, there can be a change in fixed cost too. But for immediate decision for us, what is the impact of cost on variable aspect is more important for us, right? So looking into the impact or the effect of changes immediately falling in the finished product when we are talking about a particular decision. So that's marginal costing. So the additional cost incurred because of a particular decision will be taken care in a marginal costing technique. I'm not going detail into that because we are yet to learn in detail marginal costing technique. Now, standard costing technique, as the name indicates, a standard will be set for based on the industry. It can be based on industrial standard. It can be based on the performance of the company in the past few years. But definitely a standard is being kept, and your performance is every now and then compared with the standard. So that's basically the principle is comparing with the standard and correcting wherever possible if you're deviating from the standard being set. It is more or less like budget control. Setting a budget is a standard, and deviations are taken care when we go away from the budgeted figures, right? Then historical costing is nothing but you take care of the cost only after it's been incurred. It's here based on the past performance, you plan for your future. So when a cost is already incurred, okay, you know that this is how it is operating. Then you incorporate what are the changes in the present condition, and then you decide upon what can be the future possibilities of cost structure. That's all about historical costing. Direct costing, it's not that we are trying to ignore all indirect expenses. In the indirect expenses will be written off against the profit of that particular year, but all the direct costs will be taken care in this method. See, this is normally practiced in an industry where indirect costs are very nominal, not a huge amount. You will take care of all the direct expenses for you to have a better control. Absorption costing is in marginal costing, we take care of most of it. We take care of the variable or the changes because of a particular decision. But in absorption costing, we take both the fixed cost as well as the variable cost when we take up a particular decision in absorption costing. Okay, so in this, what we are going to learn in our current semester is marginal costing technique. We have mentioned all these from the theoretical perspective, but practically what we will be learning is marginal costing technique, as well as budgeting can be told as one of the standard costing technique, one of the method used in standard costing technique, right? So both of that we would be learning in this semester, right? That's it. I've just given you a brief idea of what we would be learning in this semester. So I said I will just summarize in 2 minutes. In this semester, we are primarily looking into 3 methods, or maybe 4 methods, we can say 4 methods of costing, as well as 2 techniques, 2 principles. Okay, so 4 methods can be job costing, batch costing, contract costing, process costing. right? Job costing, where the nature of the industry is cost is computed per job assigned. In batch costing, when the cost computation is based on production in batches. In contract costing, of course, here also it is cost is computed per task or per job, but the amount of money invested in such a process is such a contract or such a business is huge, as well as the time period may be 1 or 2 years. So based on that, the nature, the methods of accounting can vary. You will need manage separate account for each contract, and it will be spread across 2 or 3 years. So that also we are going to learn under contract costing method. Then process, of course, as the name indicates, when the production happens in process, that is the finished product of one process leading to the raw material of the next process. Such industries would be going with process costing method, which we will learn as our third module. And then in our fourth module, we are going with one of the techniques, popular techniques, which are being used by cost accountants for having better control of their cost. That is marginal costing techniques, where you take care of the changes that have been brought about by a particular decision, like production of another product line, or maybe shutting down of one plant. What is the change that can happen because of this particular decision? So that's a principle of marginal costing technique. And the last, we are going to learn one cost control tool that is called as budgeting. Budgets being set, and then you compare, where we call that it is actually a principle of standard costing technique, where you compare your budgeted figure, this is your standard, and deviations being noted, and rectification measures are being taken. So that's actually a control. So that's all about what we are going to learn in sixth semester. In our next class tomorrow, we'll start with job costing. I'll just share the pro forma in our group. Just copy that to your notebook. I wanted separate notebooks of semester 6. So when you come for tomorrow's class, bring a separate notebook for costing, which is exclusively for semester 6. Okay. Thank you very much. We will meet tomorrow. Right.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you very much.
Miss.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you.
Good morning, Miss. Hello, Miss. Hello, Miss. Hello.
I'm here. Are David Anna?
Miss late ആയി പോയിരുന്നു കേറിയപ്പോ.
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
Okay,
I'll
miss.
cut it. But you are there in the class, alle?
Yes, yes.
Okay.